Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1308, Arch Pop-Up, and you can check out all of our products at karenburniston.com. These 6 pieces in this die set combine to make a generic pop-up arch, and that can be decorated year-round for any season, any theme. Now on its own, I think it kind of resembles a monster, so maybe that's something that you could explore, but probably more commonly, you'll be using it to cover it with something like balloons. So I'm going to be making this card, which is a fun balloon arch, using the Arch Pop-Up, and then combining that with our new Party Balloons die set. The Arch Pop-Up will fit in an A2 size card as well as in a slimline card. And typically on an assembly video, I would make the same size card as on the packaging, which is an A2. But I went through my stash and I found this really super pretty Cartabella paper. I wanted to use this for the card, and I specifically liked this Congrats on Your Happy Day journaling card, and it is too wide for an A2 size card. So I'm bumping up the card size not because the pop-up needs it, but because I wanted to use this journaling card. So I'm going to make a 5x6 portrait style card. So I started with a piece of cardstock 10 inches wide by 6 inches tall, scored it in the middle for folding. Then I trimmed down that journaling card so that it was just a little bit less than 5 inches on the width. These leftover pieces from the sides, I'm going to flip those over, and it doesn't quite span the card, but I'll just plan to put an embellishment to cover the gap. So I just need to take a little bit of that strip and glue, one side to one side and one side to the other, and then I'll just plan on putting an embellishment over the gap. And inside the card, I added some pattern papers, each of those pieces 4 3/4 by 5 3/4. Now, while you can always experiment, there is what I consider the sweet spot for the arch, and that is installing it 2 inches off the fold. So I'm going to take my ruler, make myself a mark up at the top of the card 2 inches off of the center fold. You do not need heavyweight materials for the arch. In fact, lighter the better because of how everything is stacked up. And I'm just going to use the leftover pattern paper. So the same paper that I used for the interior of the card, I'm going to cut each of the 6 pieces in that die set one time. You can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die. And today I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Okay, looking at the 2 pieces that make the arch, on one end of those pieces, there's a tab that has like a 90-degree corner to it. Then at the other end, you'll see that one of the pieces has a tapered tab and the other piece does not. And I'm going to use that tapered tab to connect the 2 pieces together to make a single arch. Now, I like a strong glue for this. I'm using my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We sell both of those items on our website. I can do this in the flat position, and that way I can line up the 2 halves of the arch so that they are right over the top of each other and the holes all line up. All right, so there's the arch. The tabs that have the 90-degree corner, those fold underneath the arch. So I'm going to fold those to the back. And then now this is ready to install inside the card. Okay, only because this is the exact same pattern paper, I'm going to throw a piece of white paper underneath it just so it's easier to see. All right, what we want to do is we want to install that arch so that the top of the tab is horizontal. So that can go all the way to the top of the card, or you can bring it down into the card. But just know that the further you bring it into the card, the less room you have for embellishments. So the place where you get the most room is if you go all the way to the top of the card. Or like in my case, I think I'll just go to the top of the pattern paper. Okay, now technically you can slide that down anywhere you want to vertically, as long as it stays in the card. But if you want room for embellishments, then your best bet is to install it either right up to the edge of the card, or in my case, because I've got the pattern paper, right to the edge of the pattern paper. It is the corner that needs to line up. The inside corner needs to line up with that 2-inch mark. So right there where the corner of the tab is, I've got it right on my 2-inch mark. And the top of the tab is horizontal. So no matter where you slide it down into the card, keep the top of that tab horizontal. All right, now I can add adhesive to the other tab. So I've got that arch folded in the middle so that the other side is sitting on top of the first side. I add my strong adhesive to that tab, and then all I have to do is close the card against it to attach it to the other side. So really easy installation on the arch. So just finding that sweet spot at 2 inches gives you a nice, beautiful arch. And I can go in there and kind of give it a good press in the open position. Okay, so that is the basic arch. And if you wanted to make that into a rainbow, you could switch to our rainbow add-ons and you would use this die to die cut all of the stripes that could convert that into a rainbow. Now that set also includes an arch piece that's a little bit smaller than the arch and it has a stitched edge. And that can be used either on the front or the back of the arch to cover up those slots to turn it into just kind of a solid arch. So definitely explore those ideas. The rainbow add-ons will be covered in its own video. So I'm noticing how lousy I did at lining up my two arch halves, but luckily I'm completely covering it with balloons, so I'm not going to bother even trying to fix that. All right, now let's start talking about those extra platforms that get attached to the arch. So this one, the straight one, just has one fold up the middle, and all you need to do to get those tabs through the holes is to fold in one half of the tab. And then from behind the arch, the first set of holes, you're going to put the tab through, get it hooked in there, and then just unfold the piece that you folded. And that will lock those into position. So the straight platform goes through from behind the arch. The lower platforms are next. Now those are cut on the same die, but they are mirror image pieces. They have two folds in them, one next to the tapered tab and one at the kind of little elbow of the piece. Okay, there's two horizontal folds in those pieces. So I'm going to find both those folds and fold them towards the back. Okay, let me flatten those back out and turn them around into the correct orientation. So the tapered tab is at the bottom, and then what I want to see is I've got one side that has a corner in it. See that there? There's kind of a corner. But on this side, there is no corner. It's just straight. And then the tapered tab is at the bottom. Okay? We want that straight side, that smooth side, to be towards the inside of the card. If you swap them, those platforms will work, but the middle ones won't. So you've got to make sure that you have that straight side, the straight side towards the inside of the card when you install these. Now you're going to fold in one half of the tab. That's just usual assembly. Get the tab through the slot and unfold on the back side. So again, just making sure that you have that straight or smooth side towards the inside of the card. Get the tab through and unfold on the back. Okay, the tapered tabs are going to glue down to the card, but you would not want to just guess where they go because you want to make sure you put them in the right position so that this card can fold flat. So you're going to find the flat position. So the flat position is when that platform is folded up flat against the arch. And you're going to see that there's wiggle room in it because of those tabs. Now you can just pick a position. So if you want this to match side to side, just pick a position that's easy to duplicate. So for instance, maybe that corner right there, right on the edge of the arch. That might be a great position because then you can duplicate it on the other side. The adhesive is going to go just on the tapered tab. So again, I've got my adhesive on my tapered tab. I put my corner right against the edge of the arch, and now I've just got to hold that in that flat position while I close the card long enough just to get the arch down flat against the card, and then I can just give it a good press. So I'm just trying to get that tab to attach to the card in the correct position, and I can go in there and give it a good press after it starts to set up. Okay, so there's one side done, and now I just want to duplicate that on the other side. So again, I'm going to lay the platform up against the arch. I'm going to choose to have that corner right against the edge of the arch just so it matches the other side. The adhesive is going to go on the tapered tab. I'm going to start to close the card enough that I can pull the arch down flat against the card so that I can press that into position while the arch is flat. Okay, and then just giving it a little extra pressure to make sure it sets up. And then even in the open position, I can go in there and kind of give it a good press as well. Now you could absolutely stop adding platforms and start decorating if you wanted to. You do not have to use the middle platforms. They are optional, but you do need the bottom platform to use the middle ones because the middle ones are going to go through the slot on the bottom platform. This piece that there's two of in the die, there's no up or down to it. It can work on either side, so it's completely, mirror image to itself. It just has one fold up the middle, and it has those tabs out on the end, which again, you really only need to fold in one side. And it doesn't matter which side, whichever one feels most natural. Then you're going to hook the tab through the slot on the arch, unfold on the other side, and then do the same thing with the one that goes through the bottom platform. So just hook it through, unfold on the other side. So no adhesive needed for the middle platforms. Once you have the lower platforms installed, then you can put the middle ones on. What you can't do is use the middle ones without the lower ones, because you need the lower ones, for the other end. So you can use the lower platforms without the middle. You can use the upper platform on its own, but the middle ones need the bottom ones. And that is it. That is the assembly of the arch pop-up. From here, it's just about decorating. Okay, we have this new die set called Party Balloons, and it was specifically designed because it would work great on the arch. And as you look at that die set, you can see that everything's doubled, so it'll make it faster to cut all of your balloons. But you also may say, hey, Karen, I have a die set from you called Balloon Collage Add-ons. Is this the same? And the answer is no. However, you could just use Balloon Collage Add-ons if you own it. You could use that to decorate your arch. The only thing that duplicates between the two sets is the 3D balloon. And I did that on purpose because my thought process was, well, if people are using both sets together, I don't want it to be like where you have to try and figure out which slot die goes with which notch die. And then you're trying to put your balloons back in the two respective die sets, and maybe you're getting those things mixed up. So the 3D balloons between the two sets, those do duplicate, but none of the decorator dies do. What I found with Balloon Collage Add-ons as I've used it is like, gosh, there's a big difference between the big balloon and the small one, and I sure would like a few in the middle. And so that's what Party Balloons does. The little star out of Balloon Collage Add-ons, you can see that that will fit perfectly on the star balloon, or of course any of the other balloons in the set. So if you have both sets, you can cut your balloons super fast and you have all of these different sizes. But either one would work on its own to decorate the arch. And I will demonstrate that by only using party balloons on this arch. So I'm only going to use this one set. I have 5 different colors from the pattern paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dies out of party balloons and I'm going to cut one of every die out of all 5 colors. And that will give me plenty of balloons to work with. And for each of my 5 colors, I also additionally cut 1 extra notched balloon. Okay, let's talk about a standard 3D balloon. So this would be true for Balloon Collage Add-ons too. You've got a notched balloon, you've got a slotted balloon. What you have to do is you just have to temporarily fold up one of the bottom tabs, get the notch seated in the top, shove it through, and then unfold. And that is it. Now you've got a little 3D balloon that can be used on your arch. Now, there is another type of 3D balloon you can make, and that's what the extra notched one is for. And that is if you want to make what I call a triple. Okay, and this would go for the hearts that are in Heart Collage. This would go for the butterflies that are in the Butterfly Collage Add-ons. What you're going to do is you're going to fold your notched balloon back to back. Okay, so you're going to fold it up the middle so that the pretty side is on the outside, on the mountain side. And then you're still going to just get it through the slotted balloon like normal. But the difference now is that it's going to fold and become 1/2 of your 3D balloon. Then you take your extra notched one, once again, fold it up the middle, back to back. Okay, and then now we're going to get that through the slot as well, and that will become the other half of the balloon. So the notch seated at the top, shove the bottom through, and then unfold to lock it. And then with our 2 notched balloons, they fold kind of V style, and then you can see you've got basically what I call a triple. And that one doesn't open as much. You still get a little 3D effect, but it doesn't open as much. So the triple is really good for the fronts of cards. The triple is really good for those places on the arch that maybe you're afraid of creating a catch point. Okay, the first balloon I'm going to add to my arch is just one of the standard 3D balloons. So not the triple, but just the standard one. And what I like to do with this one is just put it right over that center fold of the arch. So I'm actually going to glue the 3D balloon to both halves of the arch, making sure that the center is aligned with the center of the arch. Now that could go all the way up where it covers the complete, seam between the arch, or it can hang down below, or it can go up high. You can make your own decisions there. But just kind of test it. The thing about the balloons is you just got to test them. You got to add something to the arch and then you have to test it. Then I'm going to repeat that with one in the back. So this one's going to be on the back of that straight platform. Once again, the adhesive is going to go on both sides of the fold. And then this one, I'm putting it so that the pretty side of the balloon is facing the front of the card. So I'm on the back here just to attach it. But you can see here now the pretty side of the balloon is towards the front. And then once again, just have to test it, give it a good press. And now I have my first 2 3D balloons added to the arch. The other place that's great for a 3D balloon would be the little tabs that are coming through the arch. So just a little adhesive on that tab. And then what I like to do is kind of tilt the 3D balloon a little bit away from the center. That seems to be a good spot for it to fold down, you know, find a good resting spot where it's not kind of getting hung up on the arch itself. So just like any type of motion card, you know, you have to check for catch points as you go, and you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to move things. So use glue so that you can move things if you create catch points. Now, I will tell you with the arch, the things that are going to create catch points are when you put 3D stuff on. Like the, you know, the balloon has to open, so that's adding just another layer of something that could catch. If that's something that, you know, you think you would find frustrating, then just don't put 3D balloons on there. Just put flat balloons everywhere, and it should be fine. But if you're going to do the 3D balloons, then just start with those. That's what I would say. Start with those, get those where they're working really well, and then start adding your flat balloons in on all of the other things. Okay, so here's a large balloon on this medium platform, and I'm going to kind of move it and see how it does. And right there, I actually made it worse because it's, you know, instead of like nesting in to the 3D balloon, it's actually trying to kind of catch on the edge. So I need to move it a little bit more towards the inside, and now it's working great. So again, test every balloon as you add it. I would say for your first balloon arch, just be symmetrical. You know, change the colors, but just use the same size balloons on either side in the same locations, because you've got it working on one side, then you know it's going to work on the other side. And then as you get more and more familiar with using the arch, then you can start really getting creative with maybe swapping things up, and maybe the right side is completely different than the left side. But for your first one, I would say, man, just make it symmetrical. All right, let's talk about one of those triple balloons, because you can kind of put those anywhere as well. And I'm thinking down here on this lower platform might be a good spot for the triple. If I put one of the regular 3D balloons, I kind of have a feeling it might get a little caught up. But with the triple, it only opens a little bit. So I can test it there, and yeah, that's working great. So, you know, that's the other option too. Is like, say you love the look of the 3D balloons, but the ones that open all the way up, you know, that are just two pieces, that swing is, you know, getting caught up somewhere, we'll just, you know, trade it out for a triple. Or put a pop dot in between, you know, your regular 3D balloons so that they're trapped into kind of a 3D position, but that they don't swing. The other advice I will give is put the glue on the arch and then stick the balloon to it. Okay, so don't put the glue on the back of the balloon unless you know exactly kind of the section of the balloon that you think, you know, needs the glue. It's better to put it on the pop-up, because then you're avoiding the stray adhesive. Because what you don't want with something like this is that some, you know, sticky section of that arch somewhere or a balloon somewhere where the glue is squished out, or maybe you'd use like a glue dot and it's kind of squishing out a little bit beyond the pop-up, and then, you know, it all sticks down once you close the card. So, you know, really try to be mindful of your glue, that you're only adding the glue where you know it's going to be covered by a balloon. And just get in the habit of just adding the glue to the pop-up and then sticking the balloon to it. Now from here, what you're watching me do is literally just grab balloons and glue them all over the arch and just checking it as I go. So finding a spot, putting a balloon in, checking that it stays in the card, and checking that it isn't getting hung up on the other balloons. And I'm just kind of trying to mix up the colors, you know, so that I don't have the same color right next to each other. Maybe mix up the sizes a little bit, you know, just try different things on different platforms. So you can put as many or as few balloons as you want on that arch. You can try and completely cover it where you can't see the original arch at all, you know, or you can do kind of something in the middle. So that's really completely artist choice, however you want to do it. I will say that it'll get thick pretty fast because you are stacking all of those layers on top of each other in the closed position. So be prepared that this is one of those cards that's going to be a little thicker than your usual pop-ups. You can try to use thin materials on your balloons because that will help with the bulk, but you're going to just have to be prepared to have a little bit of extra postage for these cards. Now, if you know for sure where the balloon is going to go, you could add the glue on the back of the balloon. So here's a triple that I'm going to use here on the back of the arch. I kind of know exactly where it's going to go, so I could put that adhesive on that side of the balloon. So if it's easier on some of them to add the adhesive to the back of the balloon, then do it, but just make sure that you're only putting the glue where it's going to touch the arch. So here in the back, it's just a little easier to add the glue to the balloons themselves. Okay, let me speed this up even faster so that you kind of are getting the idea here that all I'm doing is just adding balloons to the arch, checking it after every time, just kind of spacing out the size of the balloons, the colors of the balloons, even the shape of the balloons. So maybe I'm going to start mixing in some of those stars and those small round ones. Now here in the center, for this round one, I can only put the adhesive on one side of the fold. Okay, so I've decided to put it on the right side of the fold. Okay, so I can't on that one, unless I want to fold that balloon up the middle, I have to adhere it only on the one side. I also like to put balloons kind of along the bottom edge of the arch where they're kind of hanging down into the opening. And for those, I tend to stick with the stars and the small round balloons. Or if I was using balloon collage add-ons, there's that really nice small balloon that would be good to mix in there. But they tend to fit really nicely. They're the smaller balloons. Now before I finish those balloons, I want to just take a check-in on the front of the card here because I only have one 3D balloon left and I think that's going to be perfect for the front. And I will tell you, one of my favorite decorator dies is actually a pop-up die. It is the Paper Frames pop-up. I tend to go to this die set a lot for the labels because there are so many different sizes of labels that go together so nicely, but also because it has a die that will cut a bunch of stars, a bunch of hearts, a bunch of circles all at one time. So I tend to find the Paper Frames pop-up is one of those really good embellishment dies, even when you're not making a pop-up. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue my 3D balloon down onto my little label set. And then that can be used on the front of the card to fill in that area where my missing border is, but also just kind of give a little bit of a nod to the balloons that you're going to see inside. That 3D balloon will kind of pop up when it comes out of the envelope, but it flattens down easily to mail it. Okay, and then inside I kind of thought I was done, but then I saw all of those balloons I had left and I said, you know what, I could put a little bit more across the top and make it a little fuller with those leftover balloons that I still have. So I added another layer. We have little 3x4 clear stamp sets that have sentiments that go nicely with our pop-up dies. And so I've chosen one from our special delivery clear stamp set. And I am using my Heart Soars with Joy for You, cutting it out again with those Paper Frames labels. They're so perfect. And then just some 1-inch strips of one of the pattern papers and then those layered label sets to finish out my card. And that will finish it up. So here is my finished card. I just love how this turned out. It's so pretty. Congrats on your happy day. So really simple card front, just using that journaling card and then one little 3D balloon here. And then inside, you know, the dramatic arch. All right, 5x7 envelope is your best bet for this size card. As you can see, it is over 1/4 of an inch. So it will mail, but you're gonna wanna use your butterfly non-machinable stamp if you're in the States. I feel like this card illustrates perfectly why I love pop-up cards so much. Because first of all, they're super fun to make. I mean, you make something like this, you feel accomplished, you get to open it and close it and just admire it. Then you send it to somebody and then they're impressed and they open it and they close it and then they display it and they think that you're so accomplished. I feel like everybody wins with a pop-up card. They're fun to make, they're fun to give, they're fun to receive. Okay, let's talk about variations. Because you invest in a die set, you want to try all sorts of things with it. And so with the arch, it is really just a great one to start experimenting with. And the first thing that we'll do is let's just try it at different distances off the fold. Okay, so I mentioned that 2 inches is that sweet spot, but let's go out a little further. Let's go to 2 1/4. I will tell you that I think when you get out to 2 1/2, you're basically stretching the arch as far as it will go. But 2 1/4 will still give you a nice pop-up. It's just that it's going to not stand up quite as tall as the 2-incher. It's going to lean a little bit further to the back. I don't know if you can tell the difference there since the balloon one is already decorated. Okay, so now let's put another arch in so that we can see the difference. So here's that 2-inch mark. That's my kind of sweet spot, the one that I like the best. I've come down into the card, so I just have to make sure that the top of the tab is horizontal. Or do I? Maybe you experiment a little bit with that. Maybe you try the tabs at different angles and see what kind of effect you can get. All right, this is my 2-inch arch. Okay, so glue on the tab, and then I just need to make sure it's snaked in front of the other one. Give that a second to set up, go in there, press it, make sure that it is attached. And now you can see the difference between 2 1/4 and 2. Okay, let's try one more. So I'm going to come down another 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go to 1 3/4. Okay. So every time I step closer to the fold, that arch is going to stand up a little taller, but it is also going to have more of a fold in the middle. Okay. So, there may be times when you're making a scene or something where you want that arch to stand up a little taller. You're not really using it as an arch, you're really just using it as a platform. You're going to add some trees to it. You're making a Halloween scene. I don't know what you're doing with it, but there may be times when you want to do that. So just experiment with the distance off the fold and see what kind of effects you can make. And as you can see from this card, you can always put more than one arch inside the same card. Okay, a little inspiration to end this video. This is the card that's on the packaging. It is an A2 size birthday card. Here's another A2 size card, sending a smile, you brighten my day, and this time I mixed in some of the butterflies from the Butterfly Collage add-ons. And let's take a quick look at what the design team has been up to. Lois made a patriotic 4th of July balloon arch, so you can definitely make those balloon arches for any occasion. We have some new graduation elements as well as some grad greetings clear stamps, and those are going to work wonderfully with the arch. So Sue Small-Kreider here with a brightly colored graduation arch. Jen Webster with some metallic and glitter balloons for the graduate. And then Suzanne Smith mixing in some books from our bookworm die set. Now, Sandy Diller here shows something that was designed on purpose, which is the congrats banner out of the graduation elements will fit right across the middle platforms of the arch. For this card, Nikki did not use the middle platform, so she used the lower platforms to animate her little topiary trees, and then she covered the entire arch with botanicals for a beautiful wedding card. And then Frances Byrne with a slimline happy anniversary card where she completely covered the arch with hearts. There are also a lot of rainbow ideas, but I'm going to save those for the assembly video for the rainbow add-ons. The Arch pop-up die set is available now at KarenBurniston.com, as well as at a lot of your favorite local and online retailers. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.